we're going to see how to set up Hyperledger Fabric 2.0 in your local machine. So I'm going to discuss where you have to look for the codes and which resource materials you have to look upon for you to set up Hyperledger Fabric. Okay, so every Hyperledger projects, they have a document released in the readthedocs.io. To reach there, you can just go to Google and say Hyperledger Fabric 2.0. Let's say Hyperledger Fabric read the docs. So you will get that first link. Okay, so make sure this is 2.2, that is the latest version. Check for this. Once you have it, you can go through the entire, I recommend you to go through all the documents whenever you have time, but for you to quick start, I would say just go there, getting started. Yes, that's what we need. Okay, so when you go there, they will tell you there are certain prerequisites. Okay, getting started, they say like you need some prerequisites. Let's click that word, say let's see what happens. Okay, there are certain prerequisites that is required for you. Okay, first you should have a Git in your local machine, and you should have installed curl should work locally, and you need a Docker, and you need Docker Compose, and what else? If you're using Node.js, basically you need a Node.js version of it, and yeah, I think pretty much that is all you need to actually get started. Okay, so let's quickly set up each and every prerequisite. Basically, I already have a Git, so I'm not going to tell you how to install this prerequisite. I assume you have installed Git already. You have Docker and Docker Compose already. So if you go through this document, you will know they have provided the links where you can just copy paste it, and you can create or set up the Git. Same goes for Docker Compose, and one important thing is make sure you are working on Ubuntu machine, because these Hyperledger Fabric framework, it is actually developers have used Ubuntu Linux based machines to develop the Fabric. Okay, as of today, Fabric containers comes with Alpine Linux, which is a very light weight Linux. So the support in Linux system is very good, but in case if you are using Windows or Mac, it would still work. They say there's a support, but you might face some problem where you have to do some workarounds. I would say go ahead, set up an Ubuntu and start working on it, or even better, use DigitalOcean Droplet, or you can also use AWS instance, free instance that you get, right? So you can use that as well. I'm going to use my local Ubuntu machine. So I'm going to show you how to set up what do you call the Hyperledger Fabric. So before we get into Hyperledger Fabric, I'm going to show you whether I have the necessary prerequisites set up. Okay, so let's see whether I have Git. Right, so Git version. Yep, I have Git. So Docker version. Yes, I have Docker version 19.03. Docker Compose version. So I have Docker 19, Docker Compose 1.2.6, and Git. So this is all you need, guys. You don't need anything. Curl I have by default, so I don't have to set up anything else. So I think we are good to go. Okay, so for you to install Hyperledger Fabric, you need a lot of things. Okay, you have to clone the Fabric. You need to download a lot of Docker containers. Okay, it's actually a little bit complex process, but Fabric has now created a script which will do automatically everything for you. So the setup is now totally simplified. So what you have to do is go back to our Hyperledger Fabric read the docs website, and just go to the getting started, and scroll down. You will see that there is a install sample. There is a link here. Okay, install sample binary and Docker images. Okay, so if you go there, you will see there is a script down here. Okay, there is a different script for different versions. So this first script gives you the latest version, so don't worry if you couldn't figure out, don't have time for it. I will give you this link right in our description, so you can just use that. So right now I'm copying this script and going here, I'm running the script. Okay, so this is going to take some time because it's going to download a lot of first it's going to clone the fabric samples repository. Okay, and next thing it is going to download a lot of peer binaries and many other containers. Okay, that is actually required for your Hyperledger fabric to run properly. Okay, let's give it a time so that let it download everything. As you can see here, okay, this is it's checking out the version 2.2.0, which is the latest version of Hyperledger Fabric, and also it 2.2 has the long time support LTS version of Hyperledger Fabric. Okay, so please go ahead, start using version 2.2. While this downloads something, I'm going to tell you some key differences from version 1.4 and 2.0. Okay, so let's go back to our read the dogs and we'll see this particular section, which is what's new in Hyperledger Fabric 2.0. All right. So first topic, there is a decentralized governance for a smart contract, which means that earlier smart contract, the setting up of smart contract, which is installing the chain code, was a little bit different. Now you have a decentralized governance, which means that there is a life cycle they have introduced. Okay, it is like you will create a package of chain code, you will set up in your local peer, and you will send it to the next peer, and next peer will approve it first, and then they will install. And similarly, like every other pair that is in the cycle, they all have to first install, then approve, and then only your chain code will be enabled for you to access. Okay, so that is one new additional thing. And they have introduced this private data. Okay, so that was a long pending request from the industry, which means that you need some data that need not to be shared with everybody, right? But at the same time, you want to make sure the copy that you have in local is also not tampered, right? So that kind of scenario you can achieve using private data. Private data is something similar to a local database, but it has a reference in blockchain. Okay, it's that simple. So we'll discuss all those things a little later in other videos. As of today, we'll just focus on setting up. Okay, let's go back to our okay, so let's finish this quickly. We have external chain code launcher. Okay, you can launch a you can set up chain code using an external tool. Okay, some new way of setting up chain code has come up. They've improved some caching technology. Okay, they have introduced Alpine based Docker images I mentioned earlier. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. That's what it is. You can go through each item and understand in detail what is all about. So let's come back here. What I put the setup is still going on. It is downloading all the containers. Okay, cool. You can see there are somewhere it says already exists already, because I've been using locally all these images. So some of the images I have it already, so that's why it says. Otherwise, actually it will freshly pull all the containers for you. It will run successfully now, don't worry. Most of the time you will, like 99%, you won't get any issues, because in the very earlier versions we had a lot of problems setting up, but latest versions it's very smooth. Okay. initially when I thought to make a video, I thought I'll do the complete prerequisite, install Git, install curl, install Docker, but I thought it is not really necessary. Okay, so I thought it will let me just focus on the core items only. Okay, so let I don't want to deviate this to an Docker tutorial or a Git tutorial. Okay, so I assume that you have worked with Git earlier, and I also assume you have some basic knowledge about Docker. Really, you don't need much. You just have to understand Docker containers, but don't worry if you're not an expert or anything. Okay, so that is not really required. But we'll discuss about Dockers and containers maybe in another video. We are happy to introduce Docker also. Right now, we just don't worry about it. Docker containers are nothing but an environment. It creates something like your virtual machine, right? So it's somewhat similar to that, but it is very lightweight, very easy to handle. Okay, unlike your virtual machine basically will occupy hard space in your machine, whereas a container will not do that. Okay, container will occupy very small space, and only it'll need the memory or the computing power only when it is actually being utilized. Okay, so you can easily run like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 containers easily in your local laptop. Okay, but you cannot run that many numbers of virtual machine in your local laptop. You all know that, right? So that's the huge difference that Docker provides over virtual machines. Yeah. Well, still going on. Okay, so this installation setup will take time based depending upon your internet speed. Okay, if you have fast internet, it will be like very quick. So if you kind of don't want to wait, you can scroll the video and go to the end. So maybe I'll make this zoom in, make sure the fonts are big enough for you guys to see. Okay, because I know when usually when we are making video with yeah, hey, it's cool, we are done. So it is completed. Let me see. Let me do a Docker images. Wow. Oh. Let me zoom out a little bit. You can see that so much. Okay. Fabric tools, fabric pair. We have everything latest here, right? So there are some other older versions of containers or images also. Don't worry, that's all you need. I have some few more containers, but you got all you need. Okay, so it has downloaded everything inside a folder. So let's see what really happened. Okay, let me go to your file explorer and you will see fabric samples here. You see this folder fabric samples. Inside this fabric samples, this is what it has done. It has downloaded this fabric samples and downloaded few Docker containers. So if you look at this fabric samples, let me list down. Okay, there are a couple of folders. Okay, asset transfer basic, asset transfer ledger, query, private data. So basically all these things are some examples that they have provided. It's all sample. Okay, different scenarios for you to learn and understand, try out things. Very popular example is the fabcar. We are going to run that fabcar basically in upcoming videos. But before that, we'll understand what is the most important folder here, which is the bin. Okay, you go into the bin, you will see some list of files here. These are the binaries. Okay, pair, orderer, id, mixgen, fabric, ca, server, client. These are the binaries. Without this, none of these examples will work. Okay, that's the most important. Make sure you never delete that. Okay, other important folder is the config folder. Okay, so when you go into the config, it has some three configuration for setting up the order and setting up a pair and basic configurations. Okay, so make sure you don't touch that. Make sure you have this folder under your application. Okay, so wherever you are running the scripts, it should have access to the bin folder. For if you want this to be accessible everywhere, you can actually set up a path also in your local terminal, so that it will be accessible everywhere. Okay, but we are going to run within the same folder. Whatever examples you're going to run, we're going to run in the same folder. Okay, for us to check whether this application is really working, let's try setting up the network, which let's simply go to the commercial paper. Let's do the fab car. Okay, so let's try this running the fab car. Okay, there is a, if you go to the fab car folder, you have two scripts, which is start fabric, and another one is the network down.sh fab. That is another script, and you have multiple folders, like Go, Java, JavaScript. Basically, all these folders are the chain code versions in different language. So whichever language you are good with, you keep that. Others you don't need. We are going to go with the JavaScript. Right. So let's run this application and see if these things are working. Okay, so let me see cd fabric. cd fabric samples. Okay, so we have a lot of things. So we are going to execute the fabcar example, right? cd fabcar example, and you have Go, JavaScript, network start. So don't worry about all these things. Let's do the network start fabric.sh. Before we run the scripts, let's see what is there inside the script. Okay, cat start fabric.sh. Right. Okay, so if you see here, what it does is basically this particular script, what it does is basically calls another script. Okay, that script is called network.sh, which is inside the /test network. That is your basic network for all the or most of the examples given in the fabric samples. So it calls another what do you call network. Okay, so, and it also expects some arguments to be passed, like language, say if, for example, which, because when it runs the network, it is going to install the chain code. You have to specify which chain code you want to be installed, whether it is a Go version of it, or it is a JavaScript version of it, or it's Java version of it. You have to specify it here. If it doesn't specify, I think, but defaultly it will take the Go. Okay, so that is the argument that it is expecting. I don't think there is any other argument it is expecting. Okay, so as a first step, it basically cleans up if there is any old folders. It deletes all those things, and then it calls the test network. First it brings down the network, because there are chances you might be running it already. The next step is that it runs the same script, which will not only bring up the network, it also creates a channel, and it creates a channel with CA certificate authority, and it is going to use CouchDB for its state database. Okay, and as a third step, it installs the chain code of the fabcar, and it is going to use the JavaScript or whatever the version which we are specifying, and that's it. Okay, so rest is all echo examples TypeScript. Okay, it's not much important. So let's run the start fabric. Okay, start fabric.sh and JavaScript. So when I run this, it looks for some busy box. I don't know why it is there, but it's required, so it will automatically downloading it for us. All right. So now it is bringing up the network. You can see it is generating the basic certificates for running our network. Then it will spin up all the pair nodes. So we'll actually go through it each and everything. I'll explain everything what really is happening behind these logs. Okay, now it might look like some random logs are coming up, but I will explain you what is actually going on. We'll go through each and every script and figure out what is happening inside the script so that we'll understand. But for today's video, we'll just go into set up this and we are going to run and see whether if our network is up and running. Simply, that's all. Okay. All right, so it is now downloading CouchDB containers for us because you have mentioned to use CouchDB. It is actually optional. It is not really mandatory to use CouchDB, but it gives a lot of advantage. Okay, when you're querying the state, okay, you cannot query everything with just only with key. Okay, sometimes you need to do some complex queries. So for that, CouchDB is very helpful. Okay. You'll realize when we start building application, because we are not just going to limit ourselves with the FabCar example, we'll try to modify something, add some more functionality. We'll introduce all the methods that is available in the chain code functionality. Okay, cool. Now it is creating the orderer for us, and it will create the pair 0 for arg1, pair 0 for arg2, because the test network which we call, right, it is configured in a way that it will spin up two pairs for two organization, one orderer and one CouchDB for each pair, and a CA server. Okay, so there will be a CA server for each organization. There will be CA1 and CA2. Okay, so if we get all these things, and third important thing is like when the chain code that is getting installed, right, that will also be separately running in a container. So you will also see a container that is running first for your chain code as well. Okay, so wow. Okay, so we have run all the it has created all the Docker containers. Now it is installing the chain code. So I mentioned earlier, like it has a new life cycle. Like the first step of the chain code life cycle is packaging it. Okay, so now it is trying to package the chain code. After packaging it, it will install the chain code in each pair, and then we'll query that ID, installation ID, the chain code ID. It will generate a chain code ID. We'll query it and fetch that chain code ID, and the third step is approving the chain code as the organization. Once the approval is done, the final step is invoking the chain code. Okay, so you will see that in the logs. Okay, now chain code is being installed in pair 0 of organization 1. The installation of chain code will take some time because the script itself there is a 10 seconds delay mentioned in it. Okay, so to make sure the setup is happening properly. Okay, so you'll have to wait for till that happens. You can see that it is actually issuing the pair command. Okay, pair lifecycle chain code install fabcar.tar.gz. So this you can actually manually also do. You can manually enter the pair command and you can install step by step. So whatever the script is doing, you can actually do it all by yourself also. Okay, so in the real world scenario, that is how it is going to be, because you will not have a single script that will install in all the pair. You will have separate PS, different organization, different administrators, different users. They will do the setup on behalf of the organization individually in each pair. Okay, but since this is a tutorial, we are setting up everything as single machine, and so we have created the, not we, I mean the Fabric guys, they have created an easy script for us that does all the job. Yeah. Hey, yeah, cool. So you see that it is installed in both the pairs, and then see that it queried the chain code ID and it approved as arg1. Okay, you see that arg1 is already approved, approval is true, and arg2 is not approved yet. So the next thing is now the arg2 has to approve it. So what happens, it again installs, get the ID, and it approves, and finally you can see that approval has come. So arg1 and arg2 both has approved the chain code. Okay, it is, so if one of the pair is not approving, which means that this chain code is not valid. So this makes sure that your chain code, whoever is interested, or the parties who are involved, they have to agree to it. Okay, that is what this means. All right. Okay, so the approval is all done and landed. Yeah. All right, when you see this help texts, okay, which means that you have successfully started your first Fabric network. Okay, so let us see whether it is running. So the command that you have to do is docker ps. Okay, when you see docker ps, you see that a lot of content is running. Let me make it a little bit zoom in, sorry, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. Wow, so you see that we have two pairs, pair 0 arg1, pair 0 arg1, and we have two CouchDB 0 and CouchDB 1, and you have two CA servers, CA for arg1 and CA arg2, and you have one orderer, and you have one CA for the orderer as well, and you see this long image. This is nothing but your chain code. Okay, you see that two image because chain code in each pair. Okay, for each pair. So you can see that you can, whether the name of the chain code, which is fabcar _1. Okay, fabcar is the name of the chain code, and _1 is the version of the chain code. Basically, you can create, whenever you make some changes in the chain code, you can actually upgrade the chain code also without doing anything. Okay, so if you are able to download the containers and everything, and if you are able to run the script, and if you see all these containers running, which means that you have successfully ran your application, and your network is up and ready for you to interact with the blockchain. Okay, so if you get this right, congratulations. But if you get any problems, if you are facing any issues, you got up in some error, you don't know, something is going wrong, ping me in the comments. I will respond you back. Thank you. See you all in next video. Bye bye.